Hi everybody, this is Carolina Millan and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Hustle. I am here today with my good friend Carlos Gil. How are you, Carlos?
I'm doing fabulous, Carolina.
Carolina, I love the way you say my name, thank you. So eloquent. And we're here on location in Los Angeles. Carlos took some time out of his schedule to talk to me today at his office. And so let's jump into it, like Philly D says. So, Carlos, first of all, for the few people that might not know you yet, why don't you share with us your journey, where you got started, as what you do today, what took you to what you do?
So first of all, thank you so much for giving me your time and coming down here to my office in downtown Los Angeles. So I've been working in the marketing game now for over 10 years. And I think it's really important for me, before I talk about marketing and social media, how I got into this, to give some context, what I was doing before. So I grew up in South Florida. Both of my parents are from Cuba. And I grew up right outside Miami in Fort Lauderdale. I made the decision at 17 to actually drop out of high school and get my GED. And I put that in context because it's really important as people look at some of the cool things I've done throughout my career. Like I've worked for companies like LinkedIn. I've got a book that's coming out. I do public speaking. Like all those things people see on the surface now as the aesthetics. So I think it's really important to really speak of what this journey means. So I dropped out of high school at a really young age, not for any other reason other than I moved around a lot when I was a kid. I lived in Florida, Montana, and Utah, and I went to a lot of different high schools. And I got to a point where going to my senior year, I went from 17 to 18, and I became of age. And I said to my parents one day, like, hey, I'm gonna just get my GED and enter the working world. I think, school is what it is. Mm-hmm. There's only so much that I'm gonna learn in school. So early on, I struggled. I sold shoes, I leased apartments, and my first kind of real job was at 19 years old working for Citigroup. And I went through Citigroup's management trainee program, and I wanted to work in banking. I really loved consumer lending, which is what I was doing at the time. So this is like around the period of like 2003 and 4. So like before there was a mortgage crisis, like I was working in the mortgage industry, and I really enjoyed working in that field until the economy took a downturn. So in 2008, I lost my job in the banking industry. I was 25 and I had no plan B. Like I didn't go to school, obviously, so I didn't go to college. And I turned to LinkedIn the same day I lost my job. So November 5th, 2008 is the day that I joined LinkedIn.
You joined for the first time?
Literally, I lost my job at like 9 in the morning, and I called my mom. I was like, hey mom, I just lost my job. I just want to give you a heads up. My wife was 8 months pregnant at the time. Oh. And my mom was like, hey, you know what? You're a smart kid. You'll get through this. Join a website called LinkedIn. My mom and dad are real estate brokers. So my parents have been using LinkedIn. Like my parents are real OG. They've been using LinkedIn for about like 2 years before that. Wow. So this is like the early days of like social media. So, to that point, I didn't have a personal brand. Like I didn't have a network. Like all these things that we talk about now were foreign to me. And I joined LinkedIn. It was through LinkedIn where I became motivated to start up my first company, which is an online job board called Jobs Direct USA. In full disclosure, I didn't know how to run a business. I knew nothing about marketing. And I taught myself these things. I taught myself how to code. I taught myself gradually how to use social media to do all the things that we talk about now. Yeah. So personal branding, sales, PR, relationship building, like all these facets I learned at a very young age. And I discovered that if you use the internet to meet people, it's through those people that you meet that you'll be able to form relationships with. Yes. And it was a concept that I gained early on. And to put it into perspective, the first year I was in business, I made no money. The entire premise of my business was to help people find jobs. It was to do as much good as I possibly could put out there in the world. And we're talking like 2009 when people were losing their jobs in the thousands every day.
That's right, yeah.
And I started doing these events called Pink Slip Parties. And the Pink Slip Party was a networking event to bring together people who are unemployed together with people that have jobs to network. Like there was no rhyme or reason other than just hosting a networking mixer. And every single one of these Pink Slip parties I would do would gain like media attention in those cities. And eventually from doing events in like Miami and Orlando Atlanta, and other parts of the US, everywhere I'd go, the word would get out that there was this like young 25-year-old ex-banker that was doing these events. And then eventually CNN profiled me. And then eventually Fast Company had me in their magazine. And little by little, I was building this critical mass that we refer to today as a social media following. Like, again, this is 2008 I'm talking about. So 10 years ago from where we're at this point in time in history. And for me, like, the concept of building a personal brand wasn't there. Like, it was like, at no point did I think, as I'm trying to grow my business in order to feed my family, am I thinking like, oh, I need to grow this brand because I want to be famous on the internet.
Right.
Like, that was like the least thing I was thinking about. It was really, for me, survival of the fittest. Just trying to stay afloat. And little by little, as companies would come to my pink slip parties, they would all be like surprised, like, how were you able to put this event together? How were you able to bring hundreds of people together? And I would say, simple, through social media. And this is such like a foreign concept back then. Eventually, brands started paying me to consult. They started paying my company to help them with social recruiting and eventually social selling. And one of those companies that came to my events was called Winn-Dixie. They're one of the largest supermarket chains in the US. They happen to be headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, where I lived at the time. And they came to me at the end of 2011. They're like, hey, we see what you're doing. Would you want to come work for us and run social media? And I remember going to have dinner with my wife and sitting down saying, hey, look, I really haven't made any money in like the last 4 years. I've been like fronting as a business owner and entrepreneur. Like, I have no idea how to even run a business, and I'm not making money. And in the process, like, we're getting like our lights cut off, and we're having our cars repossessed, and our home is under foreclosure. Like, I'm going to take this 6-figure a year job and I'm going to run with it. And I'm going to consider this like an opportunity for me to like truly like rebrand myself. And that's really where my career kind of reset and restarted. So like, the Carlos Gil that you see today, it's like a very long-winded way of me saying, like, the version of me that you see today is like a byproduct of that experience throughout the recession. But what a lot of people really focus on now when they hear about me or learn about me or see me at a conference is the lessons that I learned working in corporate marketing. So I went to go work for Winn-Dixie, where I started social media as a team of one, and then eventually grew that team. And I went to go work for another company in Save-A-Lot as a head of digital. And then I left there, I went to go work for LinkedIn. And in this time, I started doing public speaking, and I started growing my personal brand. And it really wasn't until around the period about 2014 that I was like, all right, like, I've got like the whole corporate thing down. I'm starting to do speaking. I'm starting to see that having a personality or persona online is like the move. And I started going all in on that. And it was like my side hustle became building this personal brand in unison with growing a career at the same time. That was really long-winded. I don't know if that answered your question in terms of the journey.
Pretty much did. At what point did you stop working for this supermarket chain and decided to go all in on your thing?
Yeah, so I worked for 4 different brands. The supermarket brand was the first of 4 brands. One. So I worked for Winn-Dixie, and I went to go work for another supermarket chain running digital marketing. And I want to preface by saying, because I didn't go the traditional route of getting a 4-year college degree, I looked at every one of these jobs that I went to go work for as paid education.
Yes.
So in lieu of getting an MBA, I am able to say, not only have I been paid a salary, but I've been paid a salary to learn what otherwise a traditional university would never teach you. So I can say I have been responsible for running multi-million-dollar ad budgets. I've been responsible for leading social media teams. So when like I speak on stage about social media, it's not because I watched a couple of Gary Vee videos and read a couple blogs and all of a sudden I'm this thought leader. It's because I've actually done the work.
Yes.
So I worked for 4 brands, again, Winn-Dixie, Save-A-Lot, LinkedIn, and the last company was BMC Software. And what I noticed was that every one of these companies that I would go work at, I was doing the same job over and over. I was dealing with the same challenges. I was met with the same resistance. I was working for the same kind of type of like leadership that wasn't all in and invested in social media. And meanwhile, I'm reading TechCrunch and National and hearing of all these cool brands doing all this stuff. And I knew 2 years before I went out on my own, I'm really meant to be an entrepreneur. I've fronted all this time as a corporate marketer, but I'm not really a corporate guy. So how do I replace a salary to be able to still feed myself and feed my family, but how can I flip that into a new career? And I get asked this question from a lot of colleagues that are curious, like, how did you make that leap from corporate to working for yourself? And the answer is you have to speak everything into existence in order for it to happen first. 2 years before I went to work for myself, I started going to conferences with this mindset that I am going to start planting this seed with colleagues of mine of what does the next step look like for me? What do the next 10 years look like? I know if I want to run an agency, I need clients. Where am I going to go find those clients?
Right.
That's one. Step two is if I'm going to write books and be paid as a public speaker and author, well, guess what? I need to write the first book before I can write multiple books. I need to start monetizing my IP. And it goes back to, I get an assessment of what am I good at? What can I teach? And that's why I tell anyone out there that wants to work for themselves, do an honest assessment of what are the one or two things that you are fluid and competent in teaching others.
Yeah.
And once you know that you can teach one or two things, then that becomes the basis of your business model. And you need to speak that into existence as you go to conferences, as you're networking online. So I'll put it into context. If you are really good at podcasting, or if you're really good at YouTube optimization or SEO or email marketing, ask as many people that you can come in contact with, like, hey, are you doing email marketing? Oh, no, I'm not. Great. Do you need help with that? Hey, do you know about the value of putting content on YouTube? Hey, I see that you have a YouTube channel and you really don't have a lot of engagement, subscribers, you're not getting a lot of views. Is that something that you need help in? And that's why I say, if you're putting things into existence and you're having these conversations, you're going to have a lot of people ultimately that aren't going to be interested. They're going to say no, but all it takes is one or two people say yes.
Mm-hmm. And if one or two people say yes, and you can even do it for free at the beginning, just to build that trust and build that experience. Like you said, you went out there and did the work. You weren't just teaching theory or whatever, you were doing it. So for me, I believe that has the most value if you ever want to build a career into this. Who were some people that you when you got started 2009, 2010? Who were some people that you looked up to that you were like, all right, I want to model what these people are doing. This works.
I've always looked up to my parents. My parents are successful career entrepreneurs. My parents are immigrants. They came to the United States as little kids from Cuba, and they've always had businesses, and they've always been able to provide for me. So I've always looked up to them as role models. Obviously, like you and I both follow Gary Vee, aka Gary Vaynerchuk. So he's someone that I learned about at a very young age. My mom has been a fan of Gary since the wine library days.
That's so cool that your mom was a fan of Gary.
My mom, shout out to Millie Gill. She is an OG. My mom one day was reading Crush It, and she's like, you need to read this book by this guy named Gary. And I was at a point in my life where I wasn't making money. I was broke. I was just bitter. And the least thing I wanted to hear was hey, go read this book. And I was like, you know what, Mom, I'm good. So long story short, one night I'm in my home, and it's maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. And my, I'm feeling just down on myself. I'm depressed. Again, I'm not making any money. And it's really tough. You chuckle, but it's tough. If you've been there before, when you're not making money, but you still have to keep moving forward because you've got this vision in your mind to help people. A lot of my friends used to say, Carlos, you're crazy. You're trying to help people, but you're not even helping yourself. Analyze that. So long story short, I go onto YouTube and I come across Gary Vee, and I was hooked. I was like, wow, this guy has something in him that just lit that fire in me. And it wasn't teaching me about marketing or social media. I think it was more or less teaching me how to be confident.
Yeah. Like he does, in my opinion, he does more motivational speaking now than business speaking, you know? So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Back to social media now. You've been doing this for like 10 years. What have been some of your challenges working with clients? You know, because I've worked with corporate clients before, and now I choose to work with entrepreneurs and like individuals more than corporate. So what have been some challenges that you had to face?
You know, anytime you're working with a client of any kind, you know, what you're trying to do is you're trying to connect a need with a solution. You providing a solution to fit the client's need. And I think when it comes to something like social media marketing, a lot of brands out there aspirationally want to be great, but they stand in their own way.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is they're afraid to take risks. One of the things I talk about a lot, and I think you heard me say this in my talk the other day at Digital Summit, is around the humanization of content.
Yeah.
Every brand out there has KPIs, and those KPIs are centered around ROI and sales. And I saw this working with Dixie, and then Save-A-Lot, and then LinkedIn, and then BMC. And we're at a point right now in time where people see through the BS. People don't want to be sold to. People are using social media as a way, it's almost like to escape their everyday 9 to 5.
Yeah. And
they're gravitating to social because they want to be a part of something bigger than them. Like we all are part of these different groups, and we're all part of this ecosystem because we want to feel like we're a part of something, right? And our social capital increases because we have a social media presence. Well, brands haven't necessarily caught onto that. And like I like to pick on the big brands because I think it's fun to do. Like there's a lot of people in this world that drink Coca-Cola. Is Coca-Cola creating a Facebook group for their fans? I don't know. They probably aren't.
Probably
like,
not.
Think of the biggest brands in the world. They should be setting the standard. Instead, what you have is people are the new brands.
Yes.
You know, people are the new media companies, and because people are the brands, they're really setting forth a precedent that big corporate brands are not following. And, you know, I think that that's going to be the demise of a lot of big companies. And I think ultimately you're going to start seeing a lot of brands shying away from social media because they're going to see that in order to have a true social presence, you need to build community.
Yeah.
You need to invest on these platforms. And you can't do this half-assed anymore.
No. Like you have to be 100% invested into it. And, you know, I like that you brought up your speech the other day because you talked about DJ Khaled and Drake. And I wanted to ask you, do you know this Korean band? Do you know BTS?
I've heard of them.
Okay, because here's something funny. Today, okay, BTS is like the top social artist on Billboard. They've been for the past 118, 120 weeks. I don't know. So the most mentioned band or musician or artist really in general on Twitter for 118 weeks straight. Okay. So nobody else is being, not Justin Bieber, nobody else gets more mentions than them. And I became a fan like recently. And today, I wanted to share that with you. Today, they launched their new album.
Okay.
And so they launched a new music video. And the fans are trying to break a YouTube record and get it to 100 views in 24 hours.
Wow. 100 million views?
Sorry. 100 million
100 million views, wow.
Sorry. 100 million views in 24 hours. And it's been like, I don't know, 13, 14 hours since the video.
Where's that now?
And it's already at like 60 million.
Wow. And you see, like, that's the power of community that most brands don't get.
That's what brands don't get. And when I started following these kids, they're 20-something in Korea. And they put out so much content out there. They have like their own reality show. They have sketches. They're everywhere. They're doing SNL tomorrow. Like Saturday Night Live, a Korean band.
If 20-year-old kids can build more influence than Walmart, who's one of the most powerful companies in the world, like that should be an eye-opener. So going back to what you were saying before, like, well, what's the challenge that you face in working with clients? Like, that is the challenge.
That
is
like
the challenge. Getting them to realize like how the rules of engagement work, how the playing field works. Like I always refer to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube as a casino. You have to play by the house rules.
Yeah.
The house.
That's a great analogy.
The house is always going to win.
Yeah.
And you will not be able to grow a business on the back of that house if the house is not getting a piece of the pie. It's not going to happen.
No.
So for every business and for every personal brand out there that seems to think like, oh, I'm going to become an influencer and I'm going to make all this money because I'm going to build up my LinkedIn following. Guess what? If LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook turns off your reach, you're like, that's it. You're done.
Yep.
And the same rules happen for big brands and corporations. Big brands and corporations have realized like, all right, on a platform like Facebook, we have potentially, potential reach and access to millions of users. So we're going to just put all this marketing and sales rhetoric and content in front of users. People don't want that.
No.
Again, they want to feel like they're a part of something. So like, I'm a fan of brands like Home Depot because brands like Home Depot play a role in people's lives. Instead of selling plywood and tile on social media, show people how to build things. Show people how to do DIYs. If you're Walmart, show people, what's on sale this week or what they can cook. Like I used to struggle with this all the time when I worked on Winn-Dixie because they're a grocery chain. So I always say like, there doesn't need to just be like a Tasty or a BuzzFeed food. Like we can do what these people do. Yep. We sell food. People have to go somewhere to buy the food. Let's at least show what to do with those groceries.
There you go. I mean, I think if more brands, like you would think it's 2019, they would realize that by now, that just showing your brand all day, like, or trying to make a TV commercial go viral is not going to happen. Like, I don't know, like, what do you think is missing? Why do you think they still don't get it?
I think it's a couple of things, right? So everything I think starts at the top of leadership. If you have leadership that has not bought all into realizing that social media marketing is a very long-term play. There's no instant ROI in social media. There's no instant ROI in any of this. If you don't opt into the fact that a platform like Instagram is hot right now, and this is where you should be rolling your dice at the table, but also realize like this could go away tomorrow, which is scary for a lot of brands.
Oh, yeah.
What most companies are doing is they're forecasting. They're saying, well, a platform like Instagram through Instagram stories is on our roadmap for 12 months from now. Well, 12 months from now, something else might be hot. 12 months from now, TikTok might come out with some feature that now like every brand's able to recruit their customers to record music videos for them. Imagine going to a big brand, imagine going to a CMO and a really conservative brand and saying like, hey, 12 months from now, we're gonna have 16-year-olds creating content using your products. A lot of corporate marketers are gonna run from that. Like you look at something like the Tide Pods Challenge. The Tide Pods Challenge, from my perspective, made Tide relevant again. Okay, it made them relevant. Why? Because if you go on YouTube right now and you type in Tide, you're not going to see content from P&G or from Tide. You're going to see the Tide Pods Challenge with millions of views. Brands get afraid because it's putting the brand in a negative light, but is it really though? It's bringing brand awareness.
True.
You look at brands like, I use this in examples also, Starbucks. Starbucks has really passionate employees, aka baristas. If you go right now on YouTube and you type in Starbucks or Starbucks employees, there are videos with hundreds of thousands or millions of views. Why are those videos being created on independent YouTube channels? Why aren't they on Starbucks YouTube channel? Why isn't that content that we can watch on Facebook? Think about that for a moment. So I think ultimately where all of this is headed is people will continue to be the brands. Us consumers will tune out brand channels. And in order for brands to stay competitive, they will have to put a human face and a voice in, as really the face and voice of their brand.
But that's challenging too, because once you put that face and that voice, let's say you hire an influencer or whatever, if that person goes away, they go do their own thing, or they don't want to work with you anymore, or they mess up and you can't work with them anymore, you go back to square one, find a new face. How do you keep it for a brand in a way that they can minimize that risk? It's always going to be there.
Well, that's a really good question. So first of all, I think influencer marketing is bullshit.
Interesting.
And I think ultimately companies will need to start developing their own influencers from within. I think you'll start seeing Facebook developing their own influencers from within that they can control everything end to end. I think brands will have to start creating their own influencers from within. And how do you do that? You do, just like you do a job interview, just like you do a casting call, you have people come in that fit the look and feel of your demographic, that know how to speak to your demographic, because brands spend all this money doing research and they have Nielsen data, and they spend all this money to understand what their consumer wants. And then you start hiring people that can speak to your consumer, that look like your consumer, and then you as a brand now own end-to-end everything from that person that you hire as an employee. So the new marketer will ultimately be what we refer to today as an influencer or a creator. And it's hiring individuals that have a very specific skill set and talent that most marketers naturally don't possess.
That's an interesting way for you to put it, and also because there are so many people striving for talking about influencer marketing. Like even Gary Vee is talking about hiring more influencers and invest more of your dollars into influencers instead of looking at the people that are working for you.
But here's what happens with influencer marketing, right? If I may, and this is why I say influencer marketing is BS. What a lot of brands will do is they will hire influencers to solve a temporary problem, which is that's creating relevance. So they get a pile of cash, they will invest in a couple of influencers, and then all of a sudden their engagement's gonna spike. So for a moment it looks really good, and then what happens when the engagement starts to fall off to where it used to be? Now all of a sudden you don't have that band-aid, which is the influencer, to help you.
True.
So what brands really are doing is they're paying for content. And that's how I would recommend that brands, or anyone out here that works with influencers, or even if you're an influencer, how you should work with brands is never go to a brand and say, well, hey, I have these many followers and I'm going to bring this following to you, because first of all, you really don't have that many followers. The people who are your true followers are the ones that are going to take action when you promote that brand. As a brand marketer, like I get approached by influencers all the time. They're like, hey, I see that you work with brands, put me in front of them, and I'll ask some of these influencers, what do you make? Oh, you make 25, 50, 100 grand? Great. For a $100,000 media buy working with you, what am I going to get out of that? What can I tell my clients that they're going to get? Well, you're going to get a reach, you're going to get an engagement. So what? That reach and engagement is your followers. It's not my clients' followers. So I think the name of the game here is content. Pay for content that brands can put on their channels. That fills a big need, because a lot of brands are lacking content that feels natural and organic, that's not salesy by nature. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
But the flip side to that is you can only put that Band-Aid on so many times before you have to start hiring brand ambassadors, which is different than influencer marketing, or you start hiring creatives internally that have that skill set that a creator or an influencer has.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are some of your favorite brands right now that are doing it right, and why?
I think some brands that are doing it right are Wendy's. I talked about them in my presentation the other day. I think that a brand that's doing it right that as a company we work with very closely is Hertz. And I enjoy working with Hertz as a creative and as an entrepreneur, because they give me the autonomy to be able to create. They've met my team. They give my team the autonomy to create with very minimal guardrails. And I think that's the key to a partnership whenever I work with a brand, or as an agency, whenever we work with brands and connect them with talent. There's a lot of brands out there that they are, they're just scratching the surface, but they're not fully going all in. And what I mean by that is leveraging social media to listen to what's being said, to truly engage. There's so much emphasis on content marketing, but listening and responding and making people feel valued is something that I think a lot of brands, most of them, are missing the mark on, quite frankly.
Yeah, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, using proportionally.
Right. It's true.
Yeah, it is true.
What brands do you like to follow? I'm curious to know. What brands do you like to follow?
Brands that I like to follow. Oreo, even though I don't really consume their product, I love their social media. It's funny. I love what they got going on. Of course, I mostly follow personal brands for now. And also Twitter and Facebook don't really show me a lot of the corporate brands anymore. They show me Lewis Howes and Gary Vee and Marie Forleo and But, those are people that I think are doing it right. Yeah.
Which goes back to what I said before, that people are the new brands.
Absolutely. One last question for you, Carlos. If you had to start all over again, right? Let's say you lose everything except your experience, right? How would you start over?
The easy answer is I wouldn't. I'm a byproduct of the journey of the last 35 years of being on this earth. So I wouldn't change anything. Mm-hmm. I think to kind of rephrase that, like, what would I advise a younger version of myself to do? And I give this as advice to anyone that's in their teens or early 20s, is save money. Save as much as you can. I made the mistake in my early 20s when I was working in banking that I had a new car every year. And this is like before the days of this. Like this was before the days of Instagram. Like there was no Instagram flexing, there was no showing off, but like I always wanted to have that newer car. I wanted to have the Miami Heat season tickets. I was always going out to nice restaurants and doing nice things. I wasn't really putting an emphasis on saving. And I think like there's a lot of destructive messages that you see on social media nowadays around wealth and around luxury. And there's like, I had a 19-year-old kid that was sitting right here like 2 months ago. And like, the kid was literally saying like, if you don't have a Ferrari by like the age of 21, that you're a failure. I'm like, dude, like, first of all, like there's more to life than the Ferrari.
Terrible.
Because that's a fulfillment, a temporary fulfillment. I think being able to save money for a rainy day is really important because you will fail at points in life. You will go through hard times. And like cash is oxygen. It really is. Like if you don't have money, it's like hard to kind of move around and get things happening and even just keep yourself afloat. So to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, I wouldn't change anything. Mm-hmm. However, I would advise a younger version of myself to save.
Save more money. Any final words of inspiration, encouraging to people struggling today with building their personal brand and their business?
Yeah, I'd say like anything that you want to do in life is possible as long as you have a plan to get you there. I'm in the process of writing my first book. It's going to come out October 3rd of this year. I'll be sure that you have a couple copies.
Yes,
once it comes
please.
Out. And like I'm kind of hard on myself sometimes, right? Because I feel like, I'm 35. I could have probably written 4 or 5 books by now, but it wasn't my time. Like I feel confident now writing a book because now I have a story that people can relate to. Now I have the experience required to make me qualified to do something that I always envisioned myself doing. So I think like it's just for anyone out there that is feeling like I want to do this, but things aren't happening. It like your time just hasn't come yet. Like I believe that things will happen at the time that they're supposed to happen. Not when you want it to happen, not when you say it's going to happen, but you should still always work towards what that goal is. I knew that there was more for me in life than working in corporate America and sitting in a cubicle and being told no all the time. I love what I do now. I have passion. I enjoy coming here to my office every day. I enjoy the people I work with. I take pride in being able to give people jobs. Like that's something that means a lot. And none of it would be possible without the relationships that I've built over the last 10 years.
All right, so where can people find you if they want to learn more from you, follow you, get more info from you?
If you want to learn more about me, you can go to socialmediacareeracademy.com. Socialmediacareeracademy.com. You can download a free ebook, which is the Social Media Survival Guide to 2019. That's kind of like a precursor to my main book that drops later this year. And then you can find me at CarlosGil83 on Instagram and Twitter.
Love it. Thank you so much, Carlos, for your time today. And thanks to everybody for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Carolina.
Thank you.